This is The Warrior's Journey, a podcast designed to equip, inspire, and bridge the gap between military members, veterans, their families, and our communities. The Warrior's Journey is an interactive online community where warriors and their families can find resources and encouragement to navigate the unique challenges they face, and presents the message of faith as the path to finding wholeness in everyday life. For questions, resources, and to find ways to get involved, visit thewarriorsjourney.org.
Hey, everybody, this is Kevin Weaver back with you at the podcast, the TWJ podcast. We're glad to have you. We've got in studio another special guest today as we continue our partner series. This has been a really great series. It's been fun to put together this. So we want to welcome Dr. Chase Kelly from Kelly Dental right here in Springfield, Missouri, which is, people are like, well, that's kind of interesting. And it's like, no, this is really cool. And Chase and I go back actually several years. I would venture to say even back to when we were just beginning the Warrior's Journey back in 2014, 15, 16, when we moved in, you guys were there. And so we happen to be neighbors. So we see each other quite a bit locally. So Dr. Chase, man, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, and thanks for your support of the Warrior's Journey. And you guys have recently really stepped up and have become great sponsors going to be sponsors of our gala coming up, and have really just shown some really wonderful interest. So excited about having you on the show here. So.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm excited.
So tell us a little bit about where you grew up and maybe even your connections. I know that you are not a veteran, but we've talked a lot about this, and it's so funny. And I'll just say this to our listeners. He'll say, "Hey, what's going on? What's going on with stuff in the world?" And right. we'll talk a little bit. Oh, that's really cool. So you're just very, very much interested in what's happening in our military community, what's happening around the world with our military families. You've asked a lot of those kinds of questions, and so you just meet people. There's certain people that you can just tell there's a genuine interest, and you're obviously one of those people. And so I just felt a connection with you and really appreciated your concern, your empathy, I think, for, what veteran families go through, and you being, in the dental field. And I think a lot of people may not really realize just how, well, maybe they do. Maybe we all do. There's some people that can be a very traumatic kind of experience for people. So and then we'll talk more about that. But tell us about just your exposure to the military and, kind of who you are, who's Dr. Chase, and go from there.
Sure. Definitely not a veteran myself, so I don't want to, misrepresent myself at all. But I do have family that, was in the military. I don't know if I've mentioned to you before, but I had a cousin who fought in Desert Storm, and I believe it was an A1 intruder. If you correct me if I'm saying that wrong, but he was a navigator for an A1 intruder at Desert Storm, and he actually got shot down. And they found him in the Gulf on Easter. And so he's buried in Arlington. And wow. I remember, the morning hearing about that when they found him. And
this is your first cousin.
This was my good question. I don't know. I was like a kid.
But it's somebody obviously. It's a hit close to your family.
Yes, he was at a few holiday, because he was active military, so we'd see him at holiday events. And so, I kind of, that was my first introduction to not only what the military is, but what the consequences are of war and the sacrifice, that's being made. Because that really affected my parents. I remember my mom crying when they found him, and my dad's washing the car in the driveway, and I'm asking my mom why she's crying, and because that wasn't real normal. And
it was this the first call for back in the early 90s? Or?
Yeah, Saddam Hussein, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was 8, so
probably 91. It would have been 91.
That would have been about right, because I was in kindergarten.
Yeah,
so
I think it's the A6 intruder, if I remember.
A6 intruder, that's right. Yeah. So I don't know.
Air Force guy should know that.
So many different numbers.
Was he a Navy aviator? Or
Navy.
Navy,
Navy, yes. Yeah. And then his older brother was, I believe, in Virginia Beach as a commander, possibly. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if he's still active or not, because they live so much farther away from me. But so that was kind of our family direct history, with veterans. But then at the office, I've got a dental hygienist, Elisa, and her husband is active reserve. Is that what you would?
Yep.
And so Pardon my lingo. If we're talking teeth, I'm great. But start saying all these military
No, it's
phrases.
Great. You're doing great, man. This is awesome.
So I should have taken notes.
In all disclosure, she's my hygienist. She's great. And so we talk a lot about, it's funny, every time I go in and I get my teeth, because she's talking, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, well, my husband's this, and, my husband, well, and we've given them some support, little things in the past, and it's been really fun. That's been a great crossover.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just that. And then, other employees whose spouses or family have been in the military. And then we've got a lot of patients, that'll come in that are either active or, I guess, retired military. And so that's pretty much my background on it. And, what sparked my interest, lately has just kind of been, with dentistry. I hope it's not trauma from our office. I think it's a lot of times past trauma from dental experiences at other offices or growing up when they were a kid. A lot of these older folks are, from the country, and they talk about the dentist that didn't numb them, that had his knee in their chest, and so I kind of hear these stories and try to kind of be, we can talk more later, but I try to be the guy that can help turn that around, or at least give them a place where they can feel like I've heard their concerns and I'm not going to do that to them. Yeah. And, I guess another bit of crossover from, dental school to me felt a little bit like boot camp, and one of the things I always think about when I think of military is, we spent, 4 years year round with all our classmates, and we got really close to those classmates. And, one of my classmates passed away from a brain tumor, a young guy, a couple of years ago, but it really hit us hard because we'd gotten to know him so well. We're going through the thick of these critical events, through school. You have these very, intense sessions of studying and testing, and you make it through those, and then you're all like in it together, and it's like, okay, we can do it. And then it's like just this big support group. So, I understand, when these fighters are, getting close to their companions and they're having each other's backs and they're in it together through the training, but then in battle, and then something happens to them that's either expected or unexpected. It's hard to shake that off. And so
that's a community. It's a brotherhood. Yeah. So what you're saying is and no doubt you felt that type of community, that belonging with a group of guys guys and gals, I'm sure that you studied with or that you went through school with. And I can't imagine anything medical in the medical field to me is like, whoa, that's pretty intense. And I know lots of long hours, long nights, long time, and intense cramming and drinking from a fire hose kind of thing.
And it's not life or death for us, so I'm not acting like it is. But you can multiply that by 10 and understand how, kind of the seriousness of, what some of those guys are dealing with.
It's interesting though, and even as a person in the dental field, it is life and death both for the patients that you serve. Because, it's interesting. Just a quick little story, but we took a group of guys, some military guys, and then we had a dentist that went with us to Bulgaria years ago, and we were doing this humanitarian thing, and we were seeing children and families that had never had dental work in their life, and we're just doing this kind of free clinic thing, and along with some other stuff that was going on during this series of events. And this dentist was, he had brought some local anesthetic, just to kind of do work on, and so especially for the kiddos. And so this one little guy, he had kind of an abscess tooth. He was going to pull it out, and he's like, okay, he was doing like, hey, do you know if he's allergic to any medications? And they're like, no, we don't know. Well, he had never had any medications. Oh, yeah. So it's like, so he gave them this local, and he went into cardiac arrest.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy. And so, but he just went, he's like, okay, everybody, here's what we're going to do. He just was very calm, and he did all the life-saving measures that he had to do. And I think I can't remember.
You had to have an AED, I guess, at that point, right?
Yeah. And it was, and it was in it. I mean, they were resuscitating him, right? Wow. And he came back. He was fine. And I'm thinking, and he was like, okay, we dodged a bullet there. And I'm like, what in the world? Because I mean, you wouldn't think that doing dentistry would be life and death, but a lot of it depends on reactions. And you've been through that training. I'm sure it's you don't want to do harm to someone you're trying to help. Right. And in many ways in the military, it's like, we're there to fight and win wars. And that means sometimes you take life, if you're in a battle, firefight or whatever, but I think we're also trying to preserve life, and we don't want civilians to be involved. We don't want, innocent bystanders to be involved. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with like drone pilots and Air Force pilots or even people who are kinetically involved on the ground
Right.
they've had incidents where, they've had to deal with that kind of thing. And that can be heavy. That's a heavy duty thing.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah. So you get that. I mean,
you're acting it out in the moment,
Yeah.
but then you have these repercussions that you didn't plan to have to deal with, and then it happens. And then you're kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that or was involved in that.
yeah. And it's all that, and first responders too. I mean, all that relates back to not all invisible wounds are a demonstration or a result of serving in the military, or being a part of a kinetic combat environment. You can be driving down the road and see something, that you weren't expecting, and it can cause a lot of trauma.
This year, speaking of your cardiac arrest deal, I mean, this year we were doing a new patient exam. We weren't doing any, procedures, no anesthetic involved. And I meet this person, and I walk out and I go see this other patient on the other side of the office, and I get called over back to this room I just walked out of, and the gal's on the ground, and her heart has stopped basically.
This is one of your patients.
Yeah, new patient, just
Wow.
met her, and so we do CPR on her for about 15 minutes and revive her, and get her heartbeat back and everything, and we basically paramedics get there and we saved her life. She ended up getting open heart surgery, and that didn't work out for her because she ended up passing in the I guess recovery room. However, she got to see her family for a couple weeks.
Wow.
But it really shook my team, because they were all involved in trying to grab, there was kind of this high and low. The high was, that we saved her life. She was able to kind of get some closure with her family, say her final, things to them, get some things in order. And then there was this kind of sadness of, but still she didn't make it. But she basically died in our office.
Yeah.
And that's one of those examples of things just happen.
Right.
That you have no influence on, but then you're left to kind of deal with your thoughts on them.
And maybe done a lot of training on that too, to know how to, or to anticipate those kinds of things. So
Yeah.
in the military, obviously with our military members and people are listening to this, if you are a veteran or an active duty military member, we'd like to think that we get all the training we need. I don't know that it's always the case. I think with our special operations community, they probably get some of the best and most intense training. But even that, you can never anticipate everything. So kind of winding back to, about spilled coffee all on myself, about winding back to, your connection though to the military with obviously family and those who have served and even the loss that your family experienced now as a Gold Star family. You've got a Gold Star connection in your family now, with someone who gave their life in their line of service, that's pretty powerful. That's always we kind of consider that we deal with our Gold Star families. It's kind of a sacred thing for us. I don't know. It's very hard to imagine what that would be like, to get that knock on the door. And, and I've got two boys that, have served and one's still serving, so there's always that thought, right? So talk about, I've always sensed a real deep empathy with you and your wife, Michelle, and your family. And, whenever you've always been interested in talking about, hey, how's it going with the guys and gals out there? How are things going with our military members?
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about that. I'd like to, what is it that spurs you on? Was it, as a kid, did you enjoy watching war movies? Do you like history, or what is it? I mean, there's obviously something that's triggering you that.
Gosh, I don't know. I've always grown up, enjoying the outdoors. I was in Scouts. Scouts, I believe, was developed originally to try to kind of prime kids to join the military and, become tactful. And, so for me growing up, getting experience with, weapons and hunting and fishing and all that stuff, I just really grew to love the outdoors. And then I was around guns and things. And then, and hunting is life or death, for the animal you're harvesting, and so.
I'm still involved with that today.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
We talk a lot about that.
Yeah. We could have a whole podcast about that one. But, I would just say, I've been around a lot of people that are into those hobbies, but then also, growing up just kind of, my father-in-law now, he's a big Civil War history, person. So he's always reading about that. But I've always enjoyed watching tidbits of, History Channel and just kind of been intrigued by the whole, development of the country and preservation of our freedom. And, when I think about the current military, I just kind of have a heart for the people that have been through that, because I guess the older I've gotten, the more, I guess I wouldn't say I feel 100% mature yet. I'm still a goofball on occasion, but, I would say the more I mature, I kind of realize, I'm proud of the things I've done and accomplished, and I'm proud of the things I've seen my family members do and my parents achieve. But that's been cut short for a lot of people. And, it was because they were doing something that allowed me to do what I'm doing. So for me, it doesn't seem fair to, it just doesn't seem fair and right. And like their life got to fully play out. Now, God's will, or however you want to look at it, what happened was going to happen, I guess, or at least God knew what was going to happen. But, it's hard to even deal with that thought, because it's kind of like, yeah, but this was my brother, this was my sister, and so for me, I kind of see your heart, and I have some family that has worked with you in the past, and just kind of told me about the late night calls you take and the availability that you've had to even with me, employees that have had some trauma, and I'll message Kevin, and not suggesting you do this unless you absolutely have to, but Kevin's kind of the red button, for civilians to, have a resource, and
we welcome that, by the way. That's fine. Yeah, we don't mind being the red button. That's why we're here. So no, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, and you just you don't want to tap into that resource unless you absolutely have to. But it's always been nice to just know someone isn't going to, as your business grows or nonprofit grows, for me, it's an emergency phone call, on a weekend for something. For you, it's taking those calls or texts, and you welcome those, but that's a heart thing. If you didn't care, you would scale, and then you would become less available to people. But you're not doing that, and you haven't done that. And I know firsthand that you're there and willing, because you get back to me, and you're a busy guy. I mean, you're kind of the technician and the manager at this nonprofit. And so, for anyone listening, he was putting together a box right before this podcast with a little tool as his son Clay was watching him. And I'm sitting there going, why is he doing this? Don't you have people that can do this for you? But
yeah, usually it's the other way around. Honestly, just on that note, I was kind of tired of sitting at my computer. I was doing some administrative work. And I'm like, I got to go put a box together because I just need that. It was a therapeutic thing. I don't normally do that. So.
Sure. Hey, whatever. Believe it when I see it. But, the thing is, for me, it's just been easy to kind of get connected with this because of who you guys are, and trying to just, if you guys don't know Kevin, he's just one of those, he says this stuff about me, but it's like, I could say the exact same stuff about him. We're at our house just hanging out in the driveway, and he just like walks up and starts asking questions about our lives, because Kevin has empathy and cares about people. And I think somebody running a program like he does, that has that heart and that mindset and that vision and purpose in what he's doing, for me is intriguing, because I want to know why you do that. And then I want to learn more about like why that's important to you. And then as I learn more about it, there's nothing turning me away from wanting to be more involved in that, because it's a basic human instinct if you understand it. So, for me, it's just, that was the drive I had, growing up with my background, and then kind of meeting you, and then just kind of learning more about it, and realizing, it is military veterans and military families. But there's a lot of life resources and tools that you can kind of gain from learning how to deal with some of these types of things. And it's, everybody's got that umbrella of the military kind of over them, whether they are aware of it or not, because we're all here because of our protection and our preservation of freedom. That's
so great. So great to hear you say that, because I know that, and I want to be careful how I say this, because this is not an indictment on our culture. It's just I think it's a reality of where we are in our existence, in our history. But it's really nice to hear someone who is a civilian person who maybe never served, but has such an appreciation for it, that I think warms the heart of many veterans, and should warm all of our hearts, because it makes it feel like those who have served, that it meant something, that it is not so much that you're appreciating the individual, like even me, you talk about what's happening here at the Warriors Journey. It's a team. I'm one person, and maybe I've been driving some of the vision, right? But it takes a whole team to do what we do. So I want to make sure that a lot of credit goes to a lot of folks who make things happen that I couldn't do it alone. And just like you, you partnering with us, that we couldn't do it without our partners either, so we're all in it together. But it does take people who are mindful of it. And for you to say, hey, I get to do what I get to do because all these men and women signed a blank check, they raise the right hand, and they are creating this environment for us to live free. And so, I don't know that's it's kind of controversial maybe to say this, but I don't think most people recognize that anymore.
Well, don't you think it's fair that we do something to support the people that allowed us to do what we're doing on a day-to-day after they're back?
Yeah.
Like, isn't it fair to them that they get a chance to live the civilian life that they're creating for others? And so for me, it's the awareness. I think that's the key component, and trying to, even though you won't understand because you weren't there unless you're a veteran, trying to understand where they're coming from, and knowing that it's not this. They're not trying to get attention for it.
Right.
And I think if you talk to them, you're going to realize that it's not them trying to get pats on the back as much as it is they're truly dealing with stuff, and they've seen stuff. And if they're not dealing with stuff, they might later.
Right.
Because I bet a lot of them come back and they're cool for a bit, and then it starts kind of coming out.
And if it wasn't for that experience, they wouldn't have had to deal with that. So because they position themselves and expose themselves to certain levels of what we call unique experiences that most people will never understand if you haven't served. And that's just part of being in the military. And it doesn't mean that everybody's in combat either. Right. I think a lot of people who didn't serve in combat, maybe they were forward though, or they're separated from their family, or they, the things that you go through even in your own training. And we know there's a series of things that we talk to so many veterans. Well, yeah, I was a veteran, but I don't really need this and don't need that because I never pulled a trigger, or I was never in that kind of which is most people in the military, right? But I'm like, whoa, time out. But you did X, Y, Z. You still sacrificed all these things, and and then you put yourself in a position where you saw a lot of stuff, where you had to deal with the traumatic things that maybe happen as a residual as your support. And most people don't have that opportunity, or even you just shipping out and going overseas somewhere, or being downrange, what we call deployed. So all that.
The guilt of being apart from their family or kids.
Oh my goodness.
Their spouse, or
all that. And
if they still have their spouse,
right, and reintegrating back in, and you're right, the brokenness that comes to family, all that. So I thank you so much for saying this, because this is what we tell our civilian counterparts, and the many folks that are from. And I'll just talk about the resource side. So we go to corporations, businesses, business owners, individuals, churches, you name it. We just say, look, we are so blessed as a country. So much of that has been built on the backs and the blood and the sweat and the loss of people who have sacrificed so much, and not everybody was required to do that. These many years since Vietnam, we haven't had a draft, so all volunteer force. You're right. The least we could we not at least provide services, programs, resources, camaraderie, love, mission and purpose, let's help these folks that they can at least have the same experience as they transition back into civilian life.
Right.
Or if they're already serving, why not help them while they serve? Do as much as we can while they're still in, to provide for them these things that we so greatly enjoy.
Right.
And we count as it's our right.
Right.
You have no rights in the military. That's you yield all those.
You have
things.
them now. They're back.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And I think as you grow, the awareness of Warriors Journey is going to be bigger, because a lot of what you're dealing with. When it comes to suicide and stuff, those are critical, time sensitive things. And if someone doesn't know how to find you or where to find you, you've got to be out there. And that's kind of what this podcast is, and kind of what the website is, and everything else is a way for you to, bring this resource to somebody in urgent need. So I think it's great that you're doing all this, and I know that not all of it's immediate gratification that you're moving the needle, but I think you're definitely moving the needle. Every time I even locally, but every time I bring up Warriors Journey, people have heard about it or seen it, and you're just doing some great things. So thank you for thank you for, giving your time for that.
Oh no, it's an honor, and thank you for allowing us to, or being willing to invest and hopefully seeing that return in a way that will bring satisfaction to you too. So many great organizations out there too. We're just one of what we hope to be some of the best, and we're working very hard to be an effective thing in what we focus on. That invisible ones area. So many other great organizations doing specific things for veterans, and it's great. So a couple quick things before we run out of time, because I definitely want to make sure I get this give you an opportunity to at least share this.
Okay.
So you having your perspective, and there will be others that will listen to this that maybe aren't military, and or a bunch of folks who we have so much transition right now. A lot of people getting out of the military, transitioning back into the workforce, trying to find. In fact, we're finding that a lot of the depression, anxiety, difficulty about where my future is, what's my mission, my purpose moving forward. Even many that we're dealing with suicidal ideations are dealing with this transition. And it's when you think about it, it's like, oh wow, that makes sense. But you're like, oh man, it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that hard. A lot of military people don't realize what they have to offer. In fact, I think veterans are probably some of the best potential workers, because of what they've learned and the amazing things that they've, the ethos, the work ethic, all that, the skills that they've learned, all that. So what would you say to, maybe a civilian business owner or an organization, a corporation, or, what would be your take? I love, because you're kind of tagging on this a little bit, but if you're to say, hey, we're involved, and this is what I would say to everybody else, here's why you should support veterans. What comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, as a business owner, I think if somebody else, has thought about it or not even thought about it, like we mentioned, just the awareness of, my 6-year-old loves to do this to me. He'll come up and he'll be like, Dad, can I have a Sprite? And I'll be like, no, Luke, you've already had a Sprite, at lunch. You can't have another Sprite today. And he's like, well, Dad, what if you were a 6-year-old boy and you were about to have dinner? Wouldn't you want your dad to let you have a Sprite? And I'm like, gosh, when he puts it that way, like maybe
he's actually said that to you.
Yeah, he does. He's manipulative. He's like a little miniature attorney that never went through law school.
That's hilarious.
So
maybe there's a future there for him. Yeah,
maybe so, but it's freaky. But the whole thing is it's a mindset. He's manipulating my mindset. So I'd say as a business owner, when you're in the grind and you're thinking about all these things that you're trying to do for your business, you're building these systems, you're building this team, and your goal is to grow, to have a bigger reach, to support your team. Take a second to maybe think about the mindset that you have in your bubble and thinking maybe of the bigger picture of why you're able to do the things you're able to do. People worry about, the stock market crashing and how, so-and-so's, there's a war going on here and the stock market's going to go down and that's going to affect my money. I mean, do you not think as a business owner that protecting freedom is going to affect your business? And, having the ability to have stability in your country because of your, powerful, your powerful military, is going to be able to protect some of the things that America holds dear, that allows us to have the freedom to do what we want to do in our businesses. So, for me, it has kind of come to me more than I've kind of probably looked for it, because I've heard stories from patients who are veterans that have dealt with trauma. I think I mentioned to you earlier, I've had patients with PTSD that are extremely anxious, fearful of the dentist because it's a dentist and they've had past experiences that were poor, and they come to me and now I've got to take a tooth out on them. And so I kind of see these events, which kind of helps reframe my mindset of, there's things that I may not understand, but there's people out there struggling with stuff that I can at least be empathetic to them. And, I am not a counselor. I can't sit there and fix them, but to know that there's places like the Warrior's Journey that can be aware of those challenges. There may be hidden wounds and help people work through and handle those. I would say as a business owner, you might want to just consider, kind of, it's the whole perspective of thinking like someone else who may be dealing with something that you haven't ever considered before, just like my son with that Sprite.
Sure. Well,
and so
and the fact that you would take the success of your business and not just look at what I've done, look at the hard work, and you gather it all up, and it's like, this is just for me. You know, I really love the fact that you're saying, hey, no, yeah, and you and your family needs to be able to, you know, celebrate the success of your practice, which is fantastic. But I so appreciate you're saying, but you know, I also there's a stewardship of this that, you know, how do I give back? You know, how do if I'm blessed and I'm successful, how do I invest in something that maybe can help others? And I know the Warriors Journey is one of those things, and you do other things too. But you know, it's just so refreshing to see someone like you who is doing that, you know, and is saying that, you know, that there's a fulfillment in that. There's a sense of not just the responsibility of it all, but the fulfillment that comes from that. And because I just really sense that from both you and Michelle when we talk to you guys. And so just really appreciate that.
Of course, for us, it's a purpose more than you can get stuck in your groove of your business, but there gets to a point where you could hear it 1,000 times over. These businesses that have grown, gotten bigger, you know, people that make more money, people that do more, have more clout or get more attention for what they're doing, but they're still not fulfilled.
Yeah.
And it's not about me feeling a certain way, but I know that there's more to it than what we're doing at Kelly Dental. My team needs to feel purpose, and my patients need to feel like they have someone else that cares more than just, pulling a tooth on them. And so, you know, it's a great opportunity for us to just, you know, help the team see that there's a bigger purpose, you know, as a Christian, you know, seeing that, you know, my life has a bigger purpose. My impact is more than just what happens in my dental office.
So faith plays a role.
Oh yeah. Faith plays. I mean, we're a faith-based office for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And just kind of, you know, it's an easy way. Not everybody's comfortable with like me breaking out in prayer at the office, but
sure,
you know, but
if they ask for it, you'd be ready.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, you know, I tell patients all the time, like, I'll pray for you. You know, we have sick, you know, employees, families. We'll pray, you know, I'll pray for them, and we do. And so it's just a good way to kind of, you know, you want the team to know that you care about people.
Yeah.
And if you care about people, and that's why I became a dentist, why would I care about people with teeth? You know,
right,
I care about people without teeth, and I care about people outside of teeth, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a way to show that and show appreciation and help our patients see that they're maybe going to a place that isn't doing it just for what it can provide me as the owner of a business, but it's like, hey, you know, this place supports the community. This place cares about veterans. This place cares about people. I want to go to a dentist that cares about people.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, because then, you know, hopefully that dentist is going to care about me at some point.
Yeah, and then maybe it'll circle back to help me. Yeah,
especially if I've got to get in there and do it. And you are so great. And I will tell you that some people's like, wow, man, Dr. Kelly, he's so young. I said, well, he's probably older than you think he is, but but
it's my lotion.
Yeah, there you go. Nice, love it. I will tell you though, I've been around a lot of dentists, and we actually, you know, switched practices when we got to know you, and we're like, man, you're really talented. I mean, you are a very talented dentist, and you dive into some really cool, creative. I just love your office, the way you got it set up. It's like really cool. So I would say to any veteran here locally, especially, it's like, yeah, if you don't have a dentist, check it out, because you really do a great job, super great job. So kind of as we wrap things up here, you know, just thinking in terms of what you have an opportunity to maybe even voice. This is a platform where, you know, most people don't necessarily get to be in front of a bunch of military folks, and so in some respects, we, you know, the hundreds, thousands of people that may listen to this, you know, what would you want to do to encourage them if you were able to just speak to a military veteran or an active military, you know, person that's actually serving, you know, any of the branches, or maybe a family member, just as where you are in your life today, you know, what would be something you'd want to tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, what you're doing, you know, it may feel like you're in this bubble and everybody else is out having fun, doing whatever they want to do, and you're stuck and you're never getting out of it. And if you count the minutes and the seconds of what you're doing, it's going to feel like an eternity, but it's not. You know, it's a segment of your life, and it's a foundation for everything else you're going to do. So when you're there and you feel like what Kevin said, where maybe everyone's not aware of the sacrifice you're making, it's not that they won't be aware of the sacrifice that you're making. There are some that are aware, but the rest have an opportunity to become aware. And so it's not all for nothing, and it's a temporary feeling. And once you're out and done, you'll have something to be proud of that you made and created and supported and were a part of. And then you have the rest of your life to help people become aware of this and to support your brothers that you were in war with. And I guess I would just say thank you for your perseverance and your ability to stick with it. I think that's a quality that's becoming harder and harder to come by. And people do appreciate it. And the ones that are aware will appreciate it. I don't know one person that's aware of it that wouldn't appreciate it. Help, I would say help be the person that makes people aware of what you're doing for others. And I would say be proud of what you've done. And I think the hardest thing you could do is to put your life on the line, or, serve in that capacity, to put your life on the line to basically help your fellow brothers and protect your country. So I would just, say, I'm going on and on a little bit,
that's
but
good. I love that.
I would just say thank you.
That's great, because I know so many civilians say, thank you for your service. And we try to help a lot of military veterans, military folks. Sometimes people are like, oh, whatever. You're just saying that. You don't really mean it, or you don't really understand, or maybe if you knew what I've done or what I've had to go through, maybe you wouldn't be thanking me.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of thing. And which isn't true. I don't think that's really true for most people who say that. But what you just articulated was a really great perspective of what thank you for your service means, and the fact that you understand that there's sacrifice, there's definitely difficulty in it. It's not an easy thing to do. However, it's very fulfilling, and you're right. It's funny. I think I was reflecting on my own experience. I was in the 80s, 82 to 89. This is all pre-GWAT. Before 9/11 and all the stuff that's happened since, and it's the last 4 years have been a lot different, a lot more intense, I think, multiple deployments. We hadn't experienced anything like that. Even in Vietnam, you usually would go for one tour or, for a year and then you're out, or you'd go for maybe two. Some guys, very rare that you do more than that. So for guys to go over and over and over and over again, it's just been a different world. But for you to say that and to recognize it as a civilian person, thank you. And I appreciate the fact that you're getting that word out there to everybody else, and and the fact that you're engaging with the Warriors Journey is really encouraging to us on this side of it. So
thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, thank you, and appreciate it. We'll look forward to having you back. And in this partner series, our whole point is trying to say, hey, look, it's our partners are, people say, well, do you have good donors? And I'm like, well, we don't have donors, we have partners, and most of our partners do contribute something, financially, but they contribute a whole lot more in the fact that we hope that we've won their heart, and then they're standing with us in solidarity to the cause of really seeing military members and their families, come to a place of hope and healing. Right. And I'm so grateful that you have even that faith element. I was in my devotions this morning and thinking in terms of Romans 5. Paul's talking about hope, where we find hope, and he's really in that fifth chapter in the first few verses. He's talking about that our hope. So much of our hope is grasped, we think horizontally. We try to grab onto stuff, and and I'm rephrasing all this, but what I took from it was, but we live in a broken world, so anything that we try to grab horizontally, we may get some satisfaction from it, but remember, it's all broken. Right. We're never going to be fulfilled. It's only when we think vertically, when we look back to our Creator, and we look to God, is it really going to matter? Because He gives it. Without Him, there isn't really anything purposeful, right? Or that purpose is just so limited. So, right. And I love the fact that you're seeing that even in your own team as you're building that team. That's pretty cool.
It's easy to fall into that too as business owners, that horizontal hope, you know, and
money.
Yeah, I mean, it's because that's what's important at first, because you want to make it work.
Sure.
But then once
money is important.
Yeah. Well, yes. But once it works, though, it's like, is that really fulfilling? Is that really fulfilling me and the team? Yeah. And my family? And is that really our purpose? And it's just not. And I think when it comes to the Warriors Journey, you're helping these military families have hope and kind of see the bigger picture and think vertically more. And I think that's what most people, once they're aware, will begin to do. Yeah.
And by the way, we don't do that. We don't push it. We just introduce, and we let that every individual discover what it is that God's doing in their heart if they want to go there. Mm-hmm. We have so many people say, "What if people don't want to?" I was like, "We're going to help people. We're a service organization, so we're going to provide everything we possibly can, regardless. But we hope we can earn the trust of every individual to have that talk with them and say, hey, what's going on in your heart? What's going on spiritually?
Well, it may be the purpose. It may be the purpose of what you're doing here on earth.
Yeah.
And that's a start.
And it is.
May not have to go there for certain people, but it's an easy way to kind of step back and look at your life as a whole. So.
We'll appreciate that. Hey, so if you need a dentist, check out Kelly Dental. If you're in the Springfield area. If not, just know that our community. One of the things that we are really trying to do. We talk about love, belonging, purpose, value. Those are kind of our 4 core engagements. And when we talk to people, community is such a big one. And so thank you for being such a great part of our community.
Yeah.
Chase, we love you, love your family, love what you're doing here in our local area. Thanks for taking care of veterans. And if you're listening or watching, we hope that you've been encouraged by this too. Maybe there's something that you could grab from this and say, hey, my life, I got to believe that there's something in my heart that says my life has more value than maybe what I give it credit for. There is a distinct purpose. We believe that everybody has a destiny. So if you haven't found that destiny yet, please reach out to us at TWJ.org. Check out our website, contact us, connect with us. We'll get you connected to someone that you really feel, that you can maybe pursue life with. And we'd love to have that opportunity to do that with you. So Dr. Chase, thanks again for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll hope to have you again. So until next time, thanks so much for being with us here at the Warriors Journey Podcast. And until then, we'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Warriors Journey Podcast. Be sure to leave a review, and to ask questions, give, or get involved, visit TWJ.org today. The Warriors Journey. Warriors helping warriors heal invisible wounds.